For 4 seasons, this entire show has run on one rule. 1. Get inside, seal the doors, hang the talisman, and the monsters cannot touch you. Everything else, the fear, the deaths, the strategy, all of it lives on top of that single promise. The monsters can't come in. And in episode 7, with almost no fanfare, a monster walked into Colony House anyway. Roger, or the thing that used to be Roger. He doesn't wait at the door. He doesn't whisper through a window. He doesn't trick anyone into letting him in. He smashes the door down and walks straight into the safest building in town. And the monsters right behind him, the normal ones, the forest ones. Somebody shuts the door and they're stuck. Same broken doorway. One thing gets in, the rest can't. That should stop you cold, because it means the rule that's kept everyone alive for 4 years just got broken, and only one of the monsters knew how. So here's what I want to argue today, and I think episode 7 basically proves it. The man in yellow has found a way around the talismans. He's not relying on the old monsters anymore, because the old monsters are stuck playing by rules he can't change. Instead, he started making new ones. From scratch, and his new creations don't follow the old rules. Roger just showed us that. We watched the man in yellow open his workshop this week, and almost nobody's talking about what it means. Let me build it for you, piece by piece, because once you see the system, this whole season looks different. If we have not met before, I am the digital self of Mr. Toshi. He is the one watching every episode, reading every line of the script, doing the research, writing every theory you are about to hear. Every word in this video is original work he wrote himself. He is in every comment thread though, reading every word you leave him. Let's start with what we actually know about the regular monsters, the forest creatures we've watched for 4 years, because their behavior is weirdly consistent, and it's the key to everything. They don't break in, ever. Think about it. We've seen these things tear a grown man apart with their hands. Physically, a wooden door is nothing to them, and yet they never just rip a house open. Instead, they spend every single night doing one specific thing, trying to get the people inside to open up on their own. They whisper, they wear the faces of the dead, they beg, they trick, they wait. The whole horror of the nighttime in this show is that the danger can't come in unless you invite it. That's not weakness, that's a rule they're bound by. Something about the talisman, the sealed threshold, holds them. Not physically, but like a law they can't break. They are restrained, and the residents have survived 4 seasons precisely because that restraint has never once failed. Hold that word, bound, because the entire theory turns on it. Now back to Roger. Watch exactly how he behaves, because he breaks the pattern in every way that matters. He doesn't whisper. He doesn't wait for an invitation. He walks up to Colony House and breaks the door down himself, the one thing 4 seasons of monsters have never done. He forces his way into a talisman-protected building, and the proof that this is special, that it's not just the door broke, is what happens next. The forest monsters try to pour in behind him and they can't, and they still can't cross it. Someone shuts the door and they're left outside clawing at nothing. So in one shot, the show tells you 2 things. The forest monsters are still bound. Even with the door hanging open, the rule holds them back, and Roger is not. Roger walked through the one barrier that has protected these people since the very beginning. Why? Because Roger isn't one of the old monsters. Roger is new. Roger was made, this episode, on screen in front of us, and whatever the man in yellow used to make him, it produced a creature that the old rules don't apply to. This is the part that genuinely changes the show, because for 4 seasons, we've never seen where the monsters come from. We knew the original townspeople became monsters after they sacrificed their children, but the actual process, the how, never shown until now. Watch what Sophia does. First, somewhere off-screen, Roger's corpse gets prepared. And this detail is so important and so easy to miss. When they find his body, his mouth has been sewn shut and there are buttons sewn over his eyes. He's been turned into a doll before the ritual even starts. Then Sophia takes an egg, and not just any egg. She goes to the hen house earlier, and she's smelling them, one by one, searching for a specific one. A fertilized egg. An egg with the beginnings of life already inside it. She finds it, pockets it, and brings it to the shed. And then she does the ritual. She whispers an incantation in some language we don't know. She cracks that fertilized egg over Roger's sewn-up chest, and she says, "It's time to play." And Roger gets up, button eyes, torn jaw, a brand new thing. The show literally calls it a category in between the cloth dolls and the forest monsters. Look at what that ritual actually is. She took a dead body and she gave it borrowed life. Life she pulled out of a fertilized egg, a life that was just starting, and poured it into a corpse. That's not summoning a demon, that's manufacturing, that's a recipe. A body, a stolen spark of new life, and the words. The man in yellow isn't calling monsters up from somewhere, he's building them out of the dead. And here's where it gets bigger, because the egg isn't his only technique. Episode 7 was running a second version of the same idea at the same time, and it's been the thread we've followed for weeks. Henry, the man in yellow, as Sophia, put his blood into Henry's drink. And this episode, that blood started doing its work. Henry's slipping into these hospital visions, lying on a bed, on life support, a nurse over him, machines beeping that only he can hear, egg magic on a corpse, blood magic on the living. Same craftsman, 2 methods. And there's a third we've already seen and didn't fully clock. Smiley. Smiley was killed, and then Smiley was reborn through Fatima's pregnancy. A monster grown inside a living host. That's why Fatima can see through his eyes. She's connected to him because in a sense, she made him too, under the man in yellow's design. So line them up. A corpse, brought back with a stolen spark of life, Roger. A living person, slowly converted from the inside by his blood, Henry. A monster, incubated inside a host and born, Smiley. These aren't random horrors. They're 3 production methods from the same workshop. The man in yellow is not a monster. He's a maker of monsters. And in episode 7, he switched the lights on and got back to work. Here's the question that ties the whole thing together. If the man in yellow already commands an entire forest full of monsters, why bother making new ones? Why go to the trouble of sewing up a corpse and hunting for the right egg? Because the old monsters are useless to him in the one place it counts. They're bound. They can't cross a talisman. They can't break into a sealed house. They've spent 4 seasons stuck outside, begging to be let in, and the residents have learned the rules and stopped letting them in. From the man in yellow's side, his army is hitting a wall every single night, literally. So he did what any cornered strategist does. He stopped trying to win with the pieces that can't move, and he started building new pieces that can. His made creatures, Roger and whatever comes next, are not party to whatever ancient rule binds the forest monsters. They're new. They never signed anything, and so the talisman doesn't hold them. Roger broke into Colony House because, for the first time, the man in yellow has a monster the talismans don't stop. That is the scariest sentence in this entire season, so let me say it plainly. The one thing keeping everyone alive, the talisman on the door, does not work on the man in yellow's new monsters. He found the loophole, and he's about to mass produce it. Now, the teeth. Because I think the teeth are part of this same system, and the fandom, especially the Spanish-speaking corner of it, has been all over this one, and I think they're right. Victor opens the glove box of the man in yellow's car and finds a pouch full of human teeth. And this isn't the first time teeth have come up. The man in yellow has a history with them, pulling them, keeping them, the monsters and their unsettling smiles. There's a running fan read that he's something like a twisted tooth fairy, an ancient thing that collects teeth as trophies and feeds off the suffering attached to them. I think it's more specific than trophies, and it fits the workshop. I think the teeth are his receipts. When you make something, when you take a person and turn them into one of yours, you keep a piece. A tooth is the part of a body that outlasts everything else. It's the one thing that survives when the rest of a person is gone. So if you wanted a permanent record of every single soul you've ever processed, across every cycle, a tooth is exactly what you'd keep. That pouch in his car isn't a souvenir bag, it's a ledger. It's every person he's ever made into a monster carried with him, like luggage. He brought his collection back to town, which tells you he's planning to add to it. And it might explain the smiles. Every monster in this show has that wrong, too wide grin, mouth front and center. What if that's the mark of the work? The mouth is where he takes the tooth. The smile is the receipt left on the face. There's one more method, and it's the cruelest, and it's the one I'd watch most carefully going forward, because it's already killed someone we know. Henry's visions aren't random. He keeps slipping into a hospital where he's on life support, being told he can wake up. And the show draws a direct line here that I don't think was an accident. This is the same delusion that destroyed Boyd's wife, Abby. The same idea that none of this is real, that it's a dream or a coma, that all you have to do to escape is die and wake up. That idea is what got Abby. And now, through his blood, the man in yellow has planted it in Henry. Think about why that's so efficient for a maker of monsters. The hardest part of his job is getting a body. The forest is dangerous, the houses are sealed, but if he can convince a living person that dying is the way home, if he can get them to walk out into the night on their own, or worse, then he doesn't have to take anything. They deliver themselves. Fresh material, willingly. The coma narrative isn't just psychological torture. It's recruitment. And here's the part that should worry everyone in that town. There's no reason it stops at Henry. The strongest theory going around right now is that Henry is just the first, and that the man in yellow will spread this same "it's all a dream, just wake up" idea through the town until it cracks from the inside, neighbors turning on each other, people convinced the way out is through the worst possible door. He doesn't need to break the town's walls if he can break the town's mind. And to be clear, the show is showing us a villain preying on grief and despair. It's the horror of the thing, not anything to take on. Hold that line when you talk about it. Now for the hope, because there is some, and it's the best kept secret of the episode. When Boyd takes a totem outside to test it, two things happen that look like a failure and are actually the most important discovery of the season. Kenny stabs a forest monster with the totem and it does nothing. The thing literally says, "Just kidding."
Just kidding.
The totems are useless against the old monsters. Total dead end. Except, at the end of the night, Elgin grabs a totem and it kills Roger. Dead. Gone. So the totems don't work on the old forest monsters, but they do work on the new made creatures. And that is everything, because the new made creatures are the man in yellow's whole plan now. The thing the residents think failed is actually the one weapon that works on exactly the threat that's coming. And watch Sophia in this episode. When Boyd pulls out that totem, her face changes. She's scared of it. Why would the man in yellow fear a weapon that doesn't even work on his monsters? Because it works on his new ones. It works on the army he's building. He doesn't care about the old forest horde. They're bound. They're a stalemate. The totems threaten the actual plan. That flicker of fear on Sophia's face is the man in yellow looking at the one tool that can dismantle everything he's about to make. The residents spent the whole episode thinking they tested a weapon and it failed. They actually found the perfect counter to his real strategy. They just don't know it yet. Quick but important. This episode, Boyd looks at old footage on Acosta's camera and sees himself and his wife here before. Boyd, not one of the chosen reincarnated souls like Tabitha and Jade, just Boyd. And earlier, Bacta asks the obvious question, if Tabitha and Jade have been here over and over, have all of us? Jade says no. The camera says yes. If even Boyd has cycled through this place before, then the man in yellow hasn't been doing this for one lifetime. He's been making monsters out of the same people, over and over, for cycle after cycle. That pouch of teeth might not be from one town. It might be from all of them. Every version of every person, reduced to a tooth in a bag he keeps in his car. That's the scale we're actually dealing with. So here's the whole thing in one breath. The man in yellow is a manufacturer of monsters. The old forest creatures are his old product, powerful, but bound, stuck outside the talismans forever. So he's opened a new line. Made creatures, built from the dead with egg magic, from the living with blood magic, that are not bound by the old rules and can walk straight through the protections that have kept this town alive. Roger was the prototype. The teeth are his receipts. The coma narrative is his recruitment. And he's ramping all of it up because, as Victor keeps screaming, he's done this before, and it ended in a massacre. The town's defense against the old monsters just became irrelevant because the new monsters ignore it. But the town also just stumbled onto the only thing that stops the new ones, the totems, and they don't even realize what they're holding. That's the board going into the back half of this season. And it is so much worse and so much more hopeful than anyone in that town understands. 3 predictions, and I'll stand on all of them. 1. The talisman safety net collapses. Now that the man in yellow has a monster that ignores the talismans, the houses aren't safe anymore, and the show is going to make that horrifyingly clear, probably with a death inside a sealed, protected home. The rule everyone trusted is gone, and the back half of the season is the town realizing it. 2. The totems become the most important objects in the show. Once Boyd connects the dots, that the totems kill the made creatures, the exact thing coming for them, those totems go from a failed experiment to the only weapon that matters. Watch for them to start mass-producing totems the way they once hung talismans. 3. The coma narrative spreads, and the town nearly destroys itself from the inside before any monster has to lift a finger. Henry's the first. He won't be the last. And the real climax of this conflict won't be a fight with a creature. It'll be the residents trying to convince each other that staying alive is still worth it. And one bonus I'm less sure of but love, I think the teeth are going to matter mechanically, not just thematically. If a tooth is the piece he keeps of every soul he's made, then I think returning or destroying the teeth, giving people back the part of themselves he took, might be how you unmake a monster. The bones of the children freed them. The teeth of the dead might free everyone else. So that's the theory. Episode 7 wasn't a quiet one. It looked quiet. A lot of talking. A failed test. A guy breaking a door. But underneath, the man in yellow changed the rules of the entire war, and almost nobody noticed because he did it the way he does everything. Quietly, patiently, while everyone was looking somewhere else. Big credit on this one to the corner of the fandom, a lot of it Spanish-speaking, that caught the tooth collector pattern and the coma narrative thread before anyone else. You all are sharp, and you basically handed me half this video. So tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me what you think the teeth really are. And tell me, if the talismans don't stop the new monsters, what does, other than a totem nobody trusts yet? Best answers make it into the next breakdown. I'll have episode 8 the moment it drops. Subscribe, and I'll see you out there. Listen for the door.